Give this a minute. All right, let's see. Turn the volume all the way down here. And there we go. Hello, everyone. I'm Ethan Van Sciver. This is Comic Artist Pro Secrets. Hi, hi. And you know what? Tonight it's going to be Comic Artist Pro Secrets for real. We're going to actually live up to our own title. I want to talk about this. I think I'm allowed to now because all of the comics have gone out except for the replacement or second chance campaigns, and I've been dying to talk about my own work now for years, 2 years. So has it been 2 years? No, it hasn't. It's been a good year and a half since this was an idea that was put into play here, and Cyberfrog Bloodhoney. This book is the best thing I've ever done in my life. So I've been anxious to actually talk about it, but the problem is that talking about it and going through it and telling what it means and what it's about. People are like, I still haven't read it yet. Now, if you're one of those people who haven't read it yet and you don't want it spoiled, watch this video later, okay? I don't want you guys to be upset with me and say, hey, I haven't read it and you're spoiling it for me. Come back and watch this after you've already read it, after you've gotten your copy. Come back and watch this after that because I want to talk about my work. I want to talk about comics, and I think that so much of this channel is kind of hindered by the fact that my own personal principles kind of make it difficult for me to discuss other people's comics. I've tried it and it never goes well. It's like I always feel awful about talking about other people's books. I've thought a couple of times about maybe using a book like Batman: The Killing Joke to discuss my feelings about comics and to criticize. Oh God, how can you criticize that book? But to talk about that book in a kind of as best as I can, scholarly or didactic way. I Because it's so good, and because Brian Boland and Alan Moore are just part of the cosmos. They don't even walk the same plane as I do. I thought that would be okay, but I kind of just never really got around to it. And the comics that are more relevant today are people that I know and people that probably hate me. I just assume everyone hates me right now, and I kind of operate from that standpoint. So I feel like I can't really talk about comics anymore unless I'm talking about my own work, and I can't talk about my own work because my own work is here and it's so like recent and it's so people spend so much money for it. People don't want to have it spoiled. So I think enough time has gone by, and most people have it that we can actually sit down together and I can actually talk about it. So Cyberfrog Bloodhoney. Cyberfrog is a character that I created a long time ago. I created this character when I was 19 years old, and I knew at that point that I was going to be a comic book artist. I'd gotten out of high school and was doing caricatures. There's this a real strange thing that happens. When you graduate high school and you don't go to college, it's almost like bungee jumping. It's like, and you're hoping there's some kind of a cord attached to your ankle that's going to pull you back up. You're free falling all of a sudden. You have nowhere to go and nowhere to be. You have to go get a job and join the workforce. And I had always uh, planned on being a comic book artist, and yet I didn't train myself to be one. I drew comics for my friends in school, and I didn't really ever try very very hard to make a real comic book. So once I was 19 years old and was had been working at doing caricatures and airbrush at the mall for a little while, I finally settled down and created Cyberfrog as a means to learn how to draw comics. So he was a character that I created just for that purpose. Amazingly, I'm a dogged and determined individual. I think maybe you've noticed that about me if you followed this channel for a little while. I had a plan. I've always had a plan. And my plan was to get Cyberfrog published by going to all the comic book stores and finding like the smallest indie company that I could. Like, there were so many comic book companies back in the 90s because people were making money, and so anybody could make a comic book out of their garage They could start a company out of their garage, and even though it would never be competitive with what was going on with the mainstream, you'd still make a lot of money. People were buying comics. So there was a company called Holly Heroes that I found at a comic book store called Comic World in Morristown, New Jersey, and they had black and white covers, just line art covers, and inside, I could see that these guys were kind of McFarlane imitators, and they were, born again Christians. They were operating out of Elkhart, Indiana, and they were young. They were like, "Hey, I'm Matt Martin. I'm 18 years old. Hey, I'm Trent Kanuga. I'm 16 years old and doing my own comic book." And so I'm 19. These guys could have been my little brothers. I sent them an issue of Cyberfrog, like a zine, a Cyberfrog zine that I had drawn, and they invited me to join them. So did 2 issues of Cyberfrog with them. We called ourselves Progress Studios. Progress didn't mean the same thing, I think, back then. We just were trying to improve. And got picked up by Harris Comics. And Harris Comics started publishing Cyberfrog. I started getting paid to do Cyberfrog. It was great. That lasted a little while, but we had a toy deal. We had a cartoon with mainframe animation and Fox Kids, and it all fell through. Harris Comics, which I think was a little bit of a shady operation, Harris Publications in New York City, they were publishing Cyberfrog under the hopes that it would become a cartoon and a toy line, and it almost did. Playmates Toys bought the license. They made a few of the prototypes, and it all fell through. Harris Comics said to me, "Hey, look, like we'll take another chance at this. We'll stick with you. We're going to need you to do Cyberfrog monthly, and we're going to pay you 1/3 of what you were getting paid before." So instead of getting paid, I think I was getting $6,000 an issue, like $300 a page. Now they were going to pay me $2,000 a page, or $2,000 an issue, not a page. That would have been nice. $2,000 an issue to draw Cyberfrog. Uh, it took me 6 weeks to draw an issue. Obviously, I could not even pay my rent or my bills, and that was just not happening. And uh, I went to DC Comics and I tried to get a job there, and fortunately, somehow, again, I always have a plan. I always get things done, and usually I succeed. At least I succeed. So I sat out and I said, "Look, I'm gonna find a comic book at DC Comics that looks entry level, that looks like they need some help right now." I found Impulse, and I'd heard through the grapevine that the current artist, Craig Rousseau, was about to leave, and that maybe that was a good place for me to try. So boom, I called DC. They let me come in and do an issue of Impulse, some pinups, and then before you know it, I'm at DC and I've left Cyberfrog behind. Now in 2010, well, I'm still at DC. I talked to I think DC Comics has acquired Wildstorm and Jim Lee, and they need to publish stuff through Wildstorm. I talked to them about bringing Cyberfrog with a story I had called Bloodhoney, about an alien invasion of hornets. It's basically the story that you're seeing here, and they agreed to do it, but then Wildstorm kind of went under. They buried Wildstorm, so Cyberfrog Bloodhoney never happened. But it always stayed in the back of my mind. It was always there. People were asking me at conventions, like Cyberfrog had fans. A few kind of it was a cult hit, and so I'd always have a few people that would come up to me at conventions and say, "When are you going to bring Cyberfrog back?" And I'd say, "Well, I own him now. I'll do it eventually. I own him. I'll do it eventually. I just don't think I can afford to do it right now. I don't think it's a good idea right now." So the events of Comicsgate necessitated, uh, made it possible for me to actually go ahead and bring back Cyberfrog. So thank effing God. Thank God for everything that happened. I'm so glad that things happened the way that they did. I had 20 years of training with some of the best creative people in the world at DC Comics. I learned how to make comics. I couldn't have done that on my own. And, I wish that everybody had the opportunity that I had to go and do, spend some time in the big leagues, and then return to the minor leagues and get to do things on your own terms and make money doing it. Thank God for that. Oh, we got some, let's see, Raging Golden Eagle fans coming in here. Cool. Welcome, guys. All right, so Cyberfrog Bloodhoney. I sat down, and this cover here, I believe, is the first thing that I drew. It was an attempt to streamline Cyberfrog, the original character, make him more frog-like, make him very dynamic. And I remember I had a page that was 11 inches by 14 inches rather than 11 by 17 inches. So you can see the image kind of drops off right here. Kyle had to build it up a little bit in order to make it a comic book cover. But the idea was just to fill this space with frog, right? So it's just from corner to corner to corner to corner, frog. And then just to make him more frog-like. And I looked at a lot of pictures of frogs in action and, midair, and, tried to improve on the original design. And I love this piece. I think I spent 2 or 3 days drawing this. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like I spent that much time on it. But because it was all about just changing him and making him more modern, making him the same but different. Now, at the time, Moose Bauman was going to color this book. And I gave Moose Bauman one of the drawings of Cyberfrog that I did. And Moose Bauman had this idea. The one good thing that Moose did, and F Moose, was to come in here and then, add these little, he said, what if he had tribal tattoos that made him look like a green tree frog, like a red-eyed tree frog? And I said, wow, I never would have thought of that. He used to just have black spots here, and I wanted to get rid of those black spots. But he actually said tribal tattoos. And I went, yeah, we're going to go with that. It adds a little splash of blue. Took a little while for my eyes to get used to that blue and yellow, like on his body. I told him to strip out the yellow and make his tummy area more white, like a green tree frog's tummy, and his lower lip and everything. And we did that. The other thing that I added was kind of based on, and I was planning on doing this. I think I actually added this in 2010. Green Lantern. One of the things that I changed about Green Lantern was that I made his symbol, I made his energy actually pop off of his costume in 3 dimensions. These red lights used to be glued into his arms, and I figured, let's pop those out and let's make those 3-dimensional and circling his arms and legs. And what do they symbolize? They symbolize the cybernetic connection that he has to Chell Sin. Chell Sin, of course, we're going to meet in the book, is Cyberfrog's mothership that brought him to Earth. And she stays in constant contact with him. Through him, he contains her, cyber physiognomy. Is that a word? Through her, he can adapt and evolve to handle any threat, and there's a big threat coming. So that's why Cyberfrog is here. These red lights symbolize that he's online. He's connected. He's connected to Chell Sin. So when you see those, that means everything's good. Everything's good. He's connected. He's ready to go. He's ready to fight. And I think they look really cool. I think it added a nice bit of color and a nice bit of energy to the design. So once Moose Bauman colored a piece of artwork, he turned in a piece of artwork and it was shit. And I knew it was shit. And Moose Bauman, he. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Why did that happen? That's weird. Okay. But they were shit. And I told him they're shit. I know you can do better than this. And I actually pointed him towards the colors of Flash Iron Heights. And I said, color more like him. And he did, and suddenly Moose was doing great work. And here he was, again, turning in lazy shit. And I said, go back and color this. And it took like another week, and finally he turned in something that was really good. Now, I knew we were going to have problems with Moose. I knew right away. Moose was not going to be able to keep up with the deadline in order to produce 48 pages. Getting Moose to color 48 pages. All right, I think we're good. Is it good? Yeah. How come it's like unfocused? All right, let's hope it gets focusy again, because it looks blurry right now. Let me see what I can do about that. All right. Yeah, I know. $1 million internet. This sucks balls. All right. So I knew Moose was not going to do a good job. I knew Moose was going to be late all the time throughout this, and so I asked Kyle Ritter to come in and help out. I asked Kyle if he would just sort of, hey, why don't you, I gave Moose this Salamandroid piece to do. I gave Moose, I think this too. I don't think he's going to do them in time. And this sucks, man. You know what? Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. Why is it so blurry? I'm watching it on the screen and it looks like pure garbage. Yeah. Do you blame Hunter? And it's roboting a little bit? Let me see. More light? You think more light will do it? I don't know if more light's going to do it. It made it worse. You see it clear? All right. Okay. Anyway. All right. So I asked Kyle to help out. And Kyle turned in a couple of things. And I showed them on the internet. Now, Moose lost his mind. I remember Moose absolutely lost his mind, and he just said, "You fired me without firing me. You got another colorist. How dare you?" And I said, well, I was kind of surprised by his reaction to that. I felt like, well, it's my comic book. I'll hire as many colorists as I want. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't your job. This is my comic book. So, if I wanna hire other people, I will. Moose absolutely went berserk. He had only colored one piece at this point, was sitting on a Salamandroid piece, which he did not ever color, did not turn any treatment to. And it was clear that he was going to be a problem, so I needed help. Bringing Kyle on board, of course, turned out to be the best thing I could possibly do because Kyle was just like, yeah, I'll help out, whatever you need. If you need, yeah, I'll color whatever you send me. Of course I will. Moose, on the other hand, was just a pill. He was a pain in the ass. And then Moose, of course, he took advantage of the fact that social justice warriors were attacking me at the time, and he joined that whole crusade. They used him. There's a whole weird thing with colorists in comics. They're all social justice warriors. They all teamed up with Moose and pretended that he had been mistreated by me, and then Moose went on a crusade, which was sad. It was made worse, of course, by the fact that Cyberfrog BLOODHONEY was a tremendous success. And that, of course, made him even more angry. All right, so thank God Kyle Ritter was here. Kyle Ritter came in and he just kicked ass. Kyle Ritter did great stuff, and he's been a superstar on this project ever since. Every time he'll turn in pages all the time when I have issues with them, when I have things that need to be corrected. He cheerfully corrects them. Yeah, no problem, Ethan. I'll do that. Turns around the correction right away. He is so easy to work with and a great guy. And thank God for Kyle. Kyle is the unsung hero of Cyberfrog BLOODHONEY, except I think that you guys realize that. So, yeah, we love Kyle. Thank God for him. All right, so then I found a letterer named Somni. Somni was part of Comicsgate, and he was working with someone else who he wasn't quite happy with. He, showed me that in private, he sent me samples. This is how to get a job. Like, he knew I needed a letterer. Everyone knew I needed a letterer. So he went back to the old Cyberfrog books from the 90s, and he found the font. He found the special font and recreated it. Now, it was a font that was designed by a guy named Robin Spihar, who had since moved on to Hollywood. He was no longer available. Somni made himself incredibly useful by learning how to copy that. And because of that, Somni got the job, and letterer, great job. He created other fonts for Salamandroid and Chelson, all of which are awesome. All right. Okay, so this is the end of part 1. I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to come right back with part 2 because I want to see if I can fix this. I don't want it to look like it looks on my screen for the rest of this as we look at the interiors of this. So this is part 1 of Cyberfrog BLOODHONEY, the origins, and now we're going to do part 2. See ya.